Hello, Facebook family, friends, and loved ones, and those of you joining us from other mediums like YouTube. Um, Again, I want to thank you for joining me through this journey through the beauty of brokenness. Um, and I also wanted to start off by asking you guys to forgive the number of typos that was in the last chapter, chapter 3, about the process. Um, I think this is an older version of the transcript that I actually have been sending out, and so I didn't realize that there were so many typos. So I pray that you can overlook those. But I wanted to start off today talking about this chapter again, the process, which something that God really shared with me a long time ago. There was a time and when I was in college, when God just really began to minister to me about the things that He wanted to do in my life. Um, and He began to give me all these different promises that He said that He would fulfill in my life in different areas. And I remember I was just going through a really tough time. And I was walking through campus one day and I was just talking to God and I was asking Him why it seemed like I was having such a hard time going through so many different things with the relationship I was in, finances at the time, just different inner struggles with things that I was dealing with at the time emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And I remember God speaking to me very clearly and saying, you know what? There is a process to every promise that I've given you. And so I think if I was to sum up this chapter, that's really the message that I want you all to have and for myself to share with you is that the process after you've gone through the association and after you have gone through the process of really learning how to hear God's voice and trusting His voice, which is the companionship, um, then there's a process that He takes you through. And I think this is the time, really in life, in different areas, whatever area you may be dealing with or God may be dealing with at that time, that He begins to really have you kind of step out in faith on His word, on the instructions that He has given you as a companion. And of course, as a companion, as we talked about last week, if He calls us His friend, then He will share with us, He'll give us insight that He wouldn't give us if we were just a servant of His. And so He knows our future. He already knows the things that He's trying to bring us to. So we have to go through this process. And in the midst of this process, I believe is when we are really refined. When God begins to really show us our character, when He begins to show us our faults and our frailties, when He begins to show us exactly how much we need Him. So now that we're at a point where we're saying, okay, God, I trust your voice. I trust the direction that you're leading me in. And we begin to step out in those things. Then we really begin to experience um, the real state of ourselves. I believe that this is a time where God really, again, refines us. And so I don't know if you know anything about the refining process with gold and silver and the precious metals, but it's put into fire, and that fire, the hotter the fire is or the longer that's in the fire, then the impurities in the metal begins to raise to the top. And once those impurities rise up to the top, then that refiner will actually scrape off those impurities or the dirt that rises to the top, the dross, they would call it. And so, once that process is done and he scrapes off, the dirt, then he sticks it back in for some more fire to get even more impurities out of it. I really believe that this process is just like that refining process, where it almost seems like sometimes, like people say, if it's not one thing, it's another, because we are constantly going through many battles, where God, again, is showing us ourselves, where He's showing us our weaknesses, where He's showing us our downfalls, where He's showing us the character flaws that we may have, that He wants us to really seek Him to become stronger in those areas. As I said in the chapter, that he chops off, he increases, and he places us in authority. So this is really a time where those impurities come to the surface. Those things have to be chopped off. And then he increases us. He increases our faith. He increases our strength in that area. And then we're able to walk in authority in whatever area that may be. And again, we're going through processes simultaneously in a number of different areas of our lives. Or maybe in one area we're dealing with just the association, where we're just now starting to really see God strongly in a certain area of our lives. Maybe in another area, we're actually going through the companionship process, where we're learning how to trust His word, trust His voice more in that area, and kind of get away from our own thoughts and our own plans. And then, in some areas, we may be going through this process where we trust God. We're stepping out in faith. We're walking according to His voice, according to the leading of His Spirit. But His Spirit is leading us in places that maybe we did not expect for ourselves to be in. And through that process, we're going through trials, we're going through tribulations, we're going through brokenness, and we're being broken down in this state, or in this time, so that He can show us again ourselves and improve us. It's all to make us better. It's all to increase our faith and our strength, so that we are able to walk in authority in certain areas. And again, some of you may be saying, well, why is it that we have to necessarily go through this process? Why is it so important for me to go through this particular thing? And, nobody can really answer that. It's all part of God's grand scheme. It's all part of His grand plan for our lives. But I really believe personally that a lot of times, especially when we go through things and we don't realize why we're going through them, why it was necessary for us to go through those particular trials and tribulations, it's because that He wants us to be able to get to that point of walking in authority, so that we can be of help and assistance to someone else who may be going through a similar situation. And maybe we don't see those people. Maybe we have no idea that those people are coming our way or will cross our paths later on in our lifetimes. But I believe that that's one of the reasons why we go through this character shaping and this strengthening, this chopping off, this increasing, this being able to be strengthened enough in our faith, and our trust in God to walk in authority. Because we're going to use this somewhere down the line. Even though we don't know where it is or with whom it may be, God is going to use it. Remember, we are His instruments. So the last thing that I really wanted to share with you all is that there was another time in my life where I was actually going through some things also. I was married, and I'm sitting at on our couch, and on our couch we can actually see out the balcony door, and there was this tree that was in the yard, and I'm looking at this tree, and I'm one of those goofy people that just whatever comes off the top of my head, I don't feel ashamed to ask God silly questions, because that's my daddy. I feel like I can ask Him anything. And I was going through a really tough time, especially emotionally and mentally at that moment. And I remember asking God, I said, I'm looking out the window and I'm seeing this tree, and this tree is just, has its branches going to and fro, just waving in the wind. I call it praising Him, enjoying the breeze of the air. And I said, God, why didn't you just make me a tree? And that may sound like a silly question, and people say don't question God, but I question Him all the time, especially when you want answers. And He answered me immediately, and He said, oh, honey, He said, don't you understand that even the trees have to go through the seasons of life? And when He spoke that to me, it was profound, of course. But I wanted to share that with you because, again, I'm not sure what it is that you may be going through. I'm not sure where you're experiencing the heat or the fire of life. Maybe you've been betrayed by a loved one. Maybe you've been abused by someone. Maybe you're finding it hard just to make it day to day because of finance, or because of maybe some mental struggles that you're going through. Maybe you have some emotional scars because of things that have happened to you in the past. Whatever your struggle is, maybe you've been, again, maybe you feel lonely. Maybe you don't have people around you that you feel are supportive and encouraging enough, or friendly enough, um, to be alongside you. Whatever your issue is, I want you to understand, and I pray that you understand that this is one of the processes that God is bringing you through. I'm going through a process in many areas of my life right now, as I've been saying throughout the videos. God is showing himself to me in new ways. He's introducing himself to me in new ways. Um, and he's processing me in new ways. So I want to encourage you that whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is that you're enduring, whatever there may be to come, I pray that you remember, and I pray that you know that this is a process, that you are going to get through this, that God is basically just refining you. He's making you more pure in your faith, making you more pure in your love and your character and your trust in him. And by doing so, somewhere in the future, somewhere where you can't see right now, God is going to use you in this area to be an encouragement, to be a blessing to somebody else. And in doing that, you'll be able to look back and you'll be able to see that this process was simply a season. It's a season in your life where God took you through, that God is taking you through, so that you can be everything, again, that he has called for you to be, so that you can fulfill his purpose and his plan, and you can reach the destiny that he has called forth for your life. So again, the third chapter is process. So I want to encourage you all, as you go through the processes of life, as you go through the fire, as you go through the heat, as you go through those places where you may feel like, I don't know if I can take much more, I don't know how much longer I can deal with this situation. I feel you, I'm there with you, and I'm not just saying that. I am so serious when I say this to you. And I just want to be, again, an encouragement to you. This is a season. God is processing you. He's strengthening you. He's cutting some things off, but he's increasing you in areas, and he will give you authority in this area where it will not be able to affect you in the way that it's affecting you now. One day, soon, you will walk in total and complete victory and authority in this area of your life, and you'll be able to see why God had you go through this process. So be blessed. Again, I thank you guys for journeying through this with me, and I look forward to your comments. I look forward to any extensions or additions or testimony that you want to give. Thank you for those of you who have sent me things last week. Again, I pray that you be blessed, and I will see you again next week. All right.